we've got a great guest, and we kept her waiting a little bit. And she's remarkable, has a list of credits to her name that we're really excited to share. She's a special needs educator and a board certified behavior analyst, and is the head. She founded Claudia Cares Consulting. And Nancy, I'm stealing all. You usually do the best introductions. Do you want to pick up where I left off, or am I?
Sure. As Shannon said, she's a board certified behavior analyst, and she's worked with the California Regional Center and the Department of Rehabilitation Adult Program. So she has lots of experience in working with school services and regulation. And this led her to create Claudia Cares because she wanted to support families through the secondary school transition and guide students through a meaningful transition to adulthood. And so she created an online course, The Right Path, which I have taken, and really brings up all the issues that you're going to encounter on the transition from secondary school to adult life. And she says we need to get started a lot earlier than we think. And let's welcome her to the show. Claudia?
Hello, we don't have your sound yet.
There we go. Thank you so much.
I'm wondering if I should.
Can you
I
hear
can
me?
hear her now, Nancy. Can you hear her?
Yes, but there's a lot of static. So I'm going to let you take over the interview, Shannon.
Okay. All right.
I had muted myself
Thank you
when you
all.
guys had static, so I thought maybe that would take care of it.
Oh, well, I don't have the static at this point in time, but Claudia, we're so glad to have you here, and Nancy will come back and join when she can. But Claudia, we're really excited that you're able to be here with us in this first week of coming back, and we want to, in particular, talk about this transition time. Tell us first, though, about Claudia Cares and how people can contact you before we launch into this.
So the best way to contact me is probably by email, which is consulting@claudiacares.com, or through my website, which is claudiacares.com.
Okay, and as we start to talk about this, is a really stressful time for families when we start to talk about the transition from school to adulthood. In fact, a lot of people refer to it as the cliff, because it just feels like, we've had this structure for this really long period of time, and that we're going to lose it. So can you talk with us a little bit about what, it's not just on the parents to be a student for doing this, right? The school has some risk. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I can. And you're 100% right. A lot of parents say it's like falling off the cliff. Sometimes they'll refer to it as graduation to the couch because their child is just not prepared and there's nothing on the other side. And basically what's happening is that there's work that needs to be done prior to that moment. And some children, their secondary transition end at graduation in 12th grade. And some children end at 22 on the 22nd birthday when they go into adult services. And part of the reason that there is such a difference is because the laws change and parents aren't even aware necessarily that this is happening. For example, the IDEA, that is the one that drives the IEPs and all the services that they're getting through the schools, ends at graduation or at the end of secondary education. And so a lot of parents plan, for example, for their child to go to community college or even a four-year college, and the IEP does not go there. And so they're not prepared. And it's the preparation that is really what is needed. The other side that's really makes it even more difficult is that you're dealing with a teenager. So parents are dealing with like what's happening right there. And then at the same time, they're supposed to think about the future. So it's a double whammy and it's hard. That's the hard part. The good side of it is that if you start early, and IDEA says that it must begin by age 16, that is not soon enough if your child's getting a high school diploma. And the IEP team can make the decision to start at 14. And there are some states that already have those laws that it must begin at 14. But if a parent begins at 14, 13 with the assessment, it's not it's really doable because then it's small steps. You can plan it out. You know where you're heading. You understand, and you can, and it's doable. So I think that's the good side, and that's what I really try to focus on with my families.
Wonderful. There's I think a lot of our viewers know what an IEP is, although we always have new people who come in. And so maybe we could talk a little bit about that. But I find that very few families, doesn't matter, even though we will talk about it frequently on the show, I find that very few families know what an ITP is. So can you talk about an IEP and an ITP and fill us in about what an ITP should look like?
So an ITP is an individual transition plan. It is part of the IEP. It is often towards the end of an IEP. So some IEPs are 30 pages long, 25, and it's at the very end. And a lot of families and parents don't even recognize that it's there because it's thrown at the end of an IEP meeting. And so it's no wonder that they don't know. And also, if your child's 14 and suddenly it shows up there, you're like, I can't deal with that. There's so much going on now. I'm not going to deal with it now, later. And then it just becomes on the side. So the first thing that I tell families is that it is okay and probably even worthwhile to ask for the ITP portion of the IEP to be a separate meeting so that you can really focus on that. And so then you are actually looking at the transition as its own entity and are able to focus on that. And so that helps.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think I knew what an ITP was until my son was 14 or 15. I don't think I'd ever heard anybody talk about it before then. And we had a guest who was on the show who talked about it. And I was like, what? I'm missing the boat here. How come I don't know about this? And then I started talking to other parents about it and going, do you know? Do you know? And I found that most people didn't. And that when we all then marched back to our school and said, hey, does my child have an ITP? It was pretty much 50-50. That about 50% of them, oh yeah, it's attached to the back part of the IEP. But a bunch of people were like, what? No. That some school districts, it's just like they just haven't been doing it. And I keep saying to parents, it's now incumbent upon us to know about it, to request it, to ask about it, and to make sure that it's happening. Are you seeing that more schools are doing it, or do you see that parents really have to be proactive like that, Claudia?
I have seen it almost exclusively always in the IEP.
Okay, good. Good. That's great.
Well, it's good and it's bad. I mean, it's good that it's there, but it's not necessarily an ITP that meets the child's needs. The goals in the individual transition plan are not hopes, they're not dreams, they're goals. So
Absolutely.
you'll hear, I'll see goals like, I want to be an airline pilot. I want to, I'm trying to think of things, that I've seen there. They want to go to college. So they write it as and some of them may be actually doable. It's not my place to say where they are or aren't. But what the goal needs to have is components in it that show what is the school, what is happening within those school years that will help them reach that goal.
Right.
Like,
Because you don't just, the airline fairy doesn't come and bonk you in the head and make you an airline pilot. You have to do a lot of things to be able to get there. A lot of things.
correct.
Brandy has said having the ITP as a separate meeting seems like a great idea to give it the focus that it deserves. I agree with you, Brandy. So that's a great tip already. What can parents do to help their children to prepare for the future and to prepare for adulthood and to prepare themselves for the ITP meeting?
So, there's a lot of different things. So let's put the education to the side, everything that the school has a responsibility. There are 4 other areas that they need to look into. One of them is government programs, and that is state specific. Here in California, we're pretty lucky. We have, even though while we're living here, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's good enough, but in comparison to other states, we're in pretty good shape. But there are government services, there are medical waivers and things like that that can help get services after schooling, because a lot of times, and again, it's very state specific, but a lot of services do come from the schools while the child is in school. So what you want to look forward and say to see what services are available in the states you live in, that you can tap into once your child leaves school. And some of them would be things like also vocational agencies and things like that. So that's one thing, government services. The other area is financial preparation. Things like understanding that you can apply for SSI the moment your child is 18. Sometimes families don't understand that their financials do not go into play the moment their child turns 18 years old. Another thing to look into is your legal areas. You know, do you want to do conservatorship, or here in California, limited conservatorship or guardianship? What are the pros? What are the cons? You know, medical decision making, all sorts of things like that. And doing those things before the child is 18, looking into them. I'm not saying necessarily doing it, because it's very personal decision. So that's, you know, I don't get into that part of it, because I do think that it depends on your culture, it depends on your situation and all that. And the other thing that families need to look at is medical options. For example, some doctors don't see kids after the age of 21. If that is your child and you've been with your doctor for 20 years, 21 years, the last thing you want to know is hear about it 3 months before.
Yeah.
So that would be one thing that you would really want to look into. Will your doctor continue providing the support that your child needs? If not, then what does the transition look like? Um,
Can
and
we go back and talk about the SSI for just a second? Because I have a question about that.
yes,
So if your child is already getting SSI and they turn 18, do you have to reapply for them, or it's
no,
just going to go straight through?
it goes straight through.
Okay.
But yeah, go ahead.
And then on the other side, I was talking to somebody the other day because my son is a senior in high school and getting ready to go to college. And they were saying, oh, make sure you apply for him to get SSI when he turns 18. And I said, oh, that's not going to apply to us because he doesn't identify as having a disability. So that's not going to apply. And they were saying to me, oh, that doesn't matter. You can still apply. And I was like, I don't think he's going to do it. But yesterday on the show, we had two wonderful self advocates, one of them who's about to turn 60 on the autism spectrum. He had worked at a job for 38 years. He drives a car. And now in COVID, first he was furloughed and now he's lost his job. His job no longer exists because they've had to move because of COVID. His girlfriend is there. She has a different diagnosis, does not drive, and works part time, but she has SSI. And I was saying, why doesn't he have SSI? And they both were saying no, because he's higher functioning and he can drive and he can work. So he is not eligible for SSI. Is SSI, is there like a test of like how much of a disability you have and then you qualify? Do you know? I'm just asking.
Yeah, to qualify for SSI, you have to show that you can't work.
You can't work.
Unable to work, right? So if you're not able to work due to your disability, then you'd be able to qualify for it.
Okay, well, that's really interesting.
So
Okay, well, that's a game changer for me.
I mean, I had a client where the parents really tried to get it, and the judge said, sorry, you have to show that she's unable to work. So she would
But
have.
we're trying so hard in the autism community to make it so that all individuals can work a job. I guess it's the other person was saying she works, but it's part-time and she still gets her SSI. So you can't work full-time and you get your, okay.
You can work a certain amount of time, and the goal is to make everyone work. So the question is, it's a balance, like how much support do you need and how much work can you do? So it's a little bit of a balance in that respect.
All right, got it. I'm sorry, I derailed us, but I was on my mind the last 24 hours. Okay, so we were talking about the things that we can do, because I think it's so stressful for a parent when our kids are about to make a transition. We always want to know, like, what's the bag of tricks? What else can we do? So you were saying, look at government support and make sure that our medical is in order. What else can we be doing, Claudia, to prepare our kiddos for this transition?
Well, you want to look at each area. I'll give you another example. Selective services. If you have a male child that's 18, they must apply to selective services. Now I'll get a parent saying, well, my child's not going to the Army. That's ridiculous. Right. So, well, this is a wait list. It's a law in the United States that any 18-year-old male, there are a few things like if they're living in some kind of residential setting, then they don't. But you have to apply for it by law, and it's actually punishable. But more interesting, and I don't know if people get punished for it or not, I have no idea. But what's more interesting is that you have to apply to it to qualify for some grants. So many of our children are going into college and might want to apply for financial support, federal financial support. And if you don't apply until the age of 26, you can't apply after that. So it's done between 18 and 26. After 26, you can no longer apply. And then if your child is still trying to get some federal funds at that point, they wouldn't be eligible.
Okay, so
So
this becomes a really important thing. I know I was told, because we just had to go through this, I was told that you apply and that, they haven't used the selective service in many, many years, but should they have a need to start it again, that at that point you would be able to ask for, I don't know whether they called a hearing or whatever, where you would go in and provide evidence of why it was not appropriate for your child, and that is a pretty, that even the last time they did it, that it's the truth of the matter is that our armed services, whether you identify as being disabled or not, if you have an autism diagnosis, they are not supposed to take you at this time. So if you have a diagnosis somewhere, what I've been told is you will be declined.
right, yeah, there's
So,
it really is. There's really no fear. It really shouldn't be a part of the picture. It just needs something. You do it online. It's really quick. And again, you want to do it before they're 18, much easier. A lot of these things are a lot easier to do as a parent before they're 18 and they reach the age of majority, because then they have to sign off after 18.
there we go. And I just learned for the first time that if you're filling out financial aid forms like the FAFSA for college, it's in there automatically. They say it has your child already registered, and if not, would you like to use this document to do it? You check yes, and then you're pretty much done. Okay, so lots of things here for a parent to do, but you were making the case that you don't want to be starting this like on the eve of their 18th birthday.
Definitely not. Definitely not. You want to know. So you want to know, and you want to know what you want to do, what you need to do age by age, depending on your situation. I'll give you another document that's really needed. Summary of performance. Summary of performance is put together by the school before your child leaves school to talk about who they are, what their needs are. A lot of people leave school and don't have it, or they have one that isn't very good. And that's a
Why do
very,
we need this? Who do we end up giving this to? Why is this important?
you
I've
can,
never heard of it.
yeah, you can give it to, it's actually an IDA, it's part of the law.
Okay.
And it is probably there somewhere, most schools, because they know how to cover their, they need to. I mean, they know how to follow the law per se, but that doesn't mean that the document has what is best, has the information that is good for your child. You were talking about your son going to four-year college. He'll probably go into the disability offices there. A summary of performance could be something that could be put in the records there to help the school understand your child's needs, and what could best, help him through his college career. So that could be one place, or even an adult program where you're trying to get some more help, or even an employer if the individual wants to be open about their disability. It's just a document that kind of rounds up who you are, your skills, what your needs are, and so forth. And if you leave school, either at graduation or 22, and then you go, oh, wait, I want it. What are the chances that you're going to go back to the school and they're going to do what you want them to do? They have a hard enough time doing it when you're in there. So,
Okay. So on our checklist that we need to get that before they graduate, who would we ask that for at the school? Whoever is the case manager?
yeah, the case or the counselor or what have you. Different schools probably have different people that take care of that. So
We have a question back about the SSI. When can you apply for SSI? Is there an age restriction?
the short answer is no. You can apply at any time, even before 18. But what they use is the financial records of the parent prior to 18. So if you do not qualify as a family for Social Security, then your child won't, because he's still a child. After 18, it's based on your child's financial situation. So you kind of want to make sure your ducks are lined up, so to speak. For example, is there a bank account for your child? If your child has money in his name, then he's not going to be able to, qualify for SSI. So you want to do things like uh, um, able accounts, for example, and special needs trusts and things like that. Um,
But even as we're talking about all this, it really what the message that I'm getting here, because I go, oh, there's a lot to keep track of. It that there's a very good reason why you've created the consulting service that you have, because rather than having to keep track of all of this for yourself and know all the ins and outs, why not take Claudia's course or work with her or work with her so that you've got somebody in your corner who knows that, been there and done that. I think that some of these things, when we go through certain hoops now, it's like, how many times are you going to do this? You're only going to go through the transition once, and you're going to learn so many things by the time you go through it once that's going to be useless information to you, but useful to somebody else. Claudia's already got it for you. So if you're feeling that, like that I'm feeling right now, save yourself the time and agita and contact Claudia and say, yes, I need some help with this. Because it's what I'm hearing is that it's going to be a slightly different for everyone.
it is.
That when I think of the difference between my son and Nancy's son and what they need and the questions that we have, we couldn't be at the same meeting together. You know what I mean? We would have different things, although there would be things in common.
Right. There's an umbrella. And then you kind of go into different roads depending on the individual, the family, the state. I mean, there's so many variables, but there is an umbrella.
So this is why you call your course The Right Path. Tell us a little bit about, how do people register for this, and like how many weeks is it? Are you there with other people? Talk to us about The Right Path.
So I've made it really simple. You can go on my website, claudiacares.com, and it's called The Right Path. Just click on it, you'll see it, and you'll have some information, and you can click and purchase it that way. It is a self-guided course. You do it at your own time, at your own pace. But what I've done, and it won't take that long. I've done is a series of very short videos, maybe 2-3 minutes long, so that you can have the information, figure out if that pertains to you. I have a workbook that goes alongside it that you could jot the notes that you need. So let's say your child is 13 years old, and you're watching the one about guardianship, and you look it up and find out what it is in your state. So I give the document there so you could look up what is available in your state, and you go, oh yeah, that may be something I need to do. You could write it down inside your workbook and refer to it later. I also have another sheet where age by age, what you should do at each age, so that you can just sort of set it up, maybe put up some reminders in your own calendar, but it's kind of all set up for someone to just have that information and be able to move forward.
Okay, well, that's remarkable. Do you feel comfortable telling us what the cost is for the course so that we can let people know?
Yeah, right now I have it at $49 a person.
I'm telling you, like that's the best deal going, you guys. I mean, to already have the checklist so that you can just do the things that you have to do and not have to guess or wonder, or in the case of so many of us, pick me, like, finding out 5 years later, oh, I should have done that, and that could have made the difference. And then the guilt that you carry in a backpack on your back forevermore after that, for less than $50, I'm telling you. Tell them what the website is to go to, Claudia, again, so they can just do this.
It's Claudia Cares, CARES.com.
And then you also do consulting. So if somebody has something that's a bigger issue or like an extreme issue or something like that, they can pay for time just to consult with you personally, correct?
I do offer one-on-one consulting. So sometimes families, need a little more direction about them. The course is really a big oversight, and it was created with the attempt to make sure that people had all the basic information all under one umbrella and kind of be able to set it up. But yes, I do offer one-on-one consulting.
Now you're here in Southern California, but you said you deal with people all over, right? That you have different
Correct.
states So it doesn't matter if you're in Texas or New Jersey, you can take the course, the right path, and find the information that you need to find. Well, Claudia, like, honestly, thank you so much for being a resource for families and for making it cost effective, because I think a lot of people are really at sea, and I think it's a difficult time because, I mean, look, our kids are are running different races, right? And as parents, I know I'm tired. My son is 17 and I'm tired. And I always say that I want to be curious and I want to learn new things. But if it's something that I just have to learn once, no, I just want somebody to tell me what to do. If it's a computer program that I'm only going to use once, I don't want to be really efficient at running the computer program. I want to get out of it what I'm supposed to get out of it. And it's the same way with my son's life. I keep telling him over and over because we're like having to learn all these new things. And I've said, yeah, you're not going to have to do this again. If we do this right, you only apply to college once. Yeah, you might apply to graduate school later on, but it's a set of lessons that are very unique to different periods in time in your life. And I have other friends who have kiddos on the spectrum where college is not, they're not college bound, but they have a whole other set of things that they're having to learn that I don't know about. So it just begs the fact that having an expert who knows which way is up. And I love the fact that you're also a BCBA. And so you get it on levels that a lot of people wouldn't get. We love you, Claudia.
Thank you. And just to kind of piggyback on that, my ultimate goal is actually to also create a course so that people know what the options are in adulthood, which this course does not have. And in addition, using my ABA background, helping parents with how to help their teenagers become more independent towards adulthood. So
we need that.
I'm just starting at this point, but this to me was the most important, having worked in adult services and families coming and going, huh? And I just, it's such an awful feeling that that's what I'm combating right now.
Claudia, I want to make sure that we connect you, at CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. They now have teen and adult centers, and I want to connect you with the folks that run those, because those families are always looking for resources like yours. And so I want to make sure, don't let me forget to connect you with those folks so that you can be on their resource list for families. They're always asking me, Shannon, who else do you have that knows things about this age range? And somebody says it needs a village to raise a child, and thank you all for that. Thank you, Claudia, for doing that. So again, Claudia, give us the website one more time.
ClaudiaCares.com.
Thank you so much for being with us today and for helping us with all this information.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, you take care.
Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out